the principles which are involved for the limit tests of the for various elements like chloride or sulfate, iron, arsenic, lead, heavy metals, all these things will be discussed. And the modified limit tests which are there apart from the basic test like for the chlorides and sulfates. In the second module, that deals with the general method of preparation or the assay of the compounds which are present in which will be dealt in the inorganic chemistry. Like uh, see, the identification tests are there, like how they, whether they are present or not, and in what amount, in what proportion they are present. They have to be acid, and there are various methods to carry out the assay for the compounds. And the categories under this module are like acids, bases, and buffers. Acid, we all know, you should know the difference between what are the acids and what are the bases, and buffers which have to keep the pH in the proper range, like buffer equations and buffer capacity in general, buffers in the pharmaceutical systems and what is their importance, why we need buffers in case of pharmaceutical systems, and what are the various methods for preparations of those buffers or buffer solutions, the stability, like at what pH they are stable and at what pH they should be working in the body, the buffered isotonic solution. So tonicity is very important in case of these things. Then measurement of tonicity, hypertonic, isotonic, hypotonic solutions, they will be dealt in details, and the calculations and the methods for adjusting how the tonicity or the isotonicity is adjusted. All these things will be dealt in the section 1 of module 2, that is acid, bases, and buffers. Then the second part is the major extra and intracellular electrolytes. Electrolytes, what are electrolytes? What is their importance? What if they are the amount or the content of the electrolyte is less or more in the body? So, and what are the basic extracellular or what are the intracellular electrolytes? All these things will be discussed in this unit. Like what are the functions of major physiological ions? These electrolytes, they are present in the body and work as in the form of various ions, and how they are, what is the function of these major electrolytes. Then electrolytes are used in the replacement therapy. First of all, you will get to know about the replacement therapy. What is the meaning of replacement therapy and why it is required, and why electrolytes are given in case of replacement therapy. Various examples of these electrolytes will be discussed, like sodium chloride, potassium chloride, calcium gluconate, and ORS. You must have heard the term about ORS solution. Like if we have got the problem of diarrhea or too much loss of water from the body is there, so many electrolytes which are required for the normal functioning of the system, they are easily lost from the body, so they have to be replenished or replaced. So this is the oral rehydration therapy. You must have heard that if a person is suffering from diarrhea, and then he or she is given advice to take some electrolytes, like every time you have to go for easing you out, then you have to take the replacement or the ORS whole, the solution of that ORS. And what is the physiological acid base balance? It has to be maintained in the body for carrying out the normal function. And what is the physiological acid base balance? Then the third part of the module 2 is the dental products. Like what are the various types of the dental products which are there and which have to be used, like dentifrices. What are the dentifrices? What is the role of fluoride in the treatment of dental caries? Dental caries is a major problem these days, and what is the role of fluorides? Too much fluoride should not be there, but there is proper type of concentration which has to be there. Then desensitizing agents, you must have heard watched the advertisement of like so many toothpastes are there, and they are focusing on the sensitivity of the teeth, and you have to take this thing and that thing. All these desensitizing agents, they are there. Then calcium carbonate, sodium fluoride, and zinc eugenol cement. All these things, they are studied under the subsection 3 of the module 2. Then coming to the module 3, this deals with the gastrointestinal agents. Gastrointestinal agents like the drugs which act on the gastrointestinal tract, GIT. So they are like acidifiers, or for example, ammonium chloride, dilute hydrochloric acid. Then antacids are there. What are the different types of antacids which are there and which have to be or which should be given? And what are the problems, under what problem the antacids have to be given? Then coming to the for example, like ideal properties of antacids, combination of antacids, sodium bicarbonate, aluminum hydroxide gel, magnesium hydroxide mixture, or the combination therapy. Then cathartics, like what are cathartics and why they are or they have to be given. All these things will be discussed under this subsection of module 3. Then coming to the antimicrobials, what are the various types of microbials or antimicrobials which have to be given to the patients. But before, let me tell you one thing, before discussing all these things like these agents or the agents to treat some sort of ailments, we have to go into the root cause of the disease. So in brief, we will discuss about the system and the ailments or the problems which are there in that particular part of the system, and then we will come to the agents or the drugs or the medicinal agents which will be given to combat those problems. So in the antimicrobial sections, we will be briefly discussing about the mechanism, classification of the antimicrobials, and some of the examples would be potassium permanganate, boric acid, hydrogen peroxide, chlorinated lime, iodine, and its preparation. Then coming to the module 4, in the syllabus it is discussed that miscellaneous agents like expectorants, which are used to ease out the cough, then emetics like copper sulfate, sodium potassium tartrate, emetics, that why they are needed and why they have to be given, this will be discussed in details. Then hematinics, like what is the use of hematinics and why they have to be given. The examples being ferrous sulfate and ferrous gluconate. Then poisoning is very important, that if at all this poisoning takes place, then what are the basic steps we have to take and what are the antidotes that have to be given or taken into account to combat the poisoning, if at all, if it has happened accidentally or deliberately. Then last part of this module 4 is the astringents. Astringents, as we know, they are the what are astringents? They are the agents which precipitate proteins, and the examples being zinc sulfate and potash alum. And the last module, that is radiopharmaceuticals. We have to discuss about the radioactivity, the what is radioactivity, measurements of radioactivity, how it is measured, then properties of alpha, beta, and gamma radiations. What are they? How they are generated, and what are the properties of these three radiations? Then half-life. What is the concept of half-life? What is the half-life of these radiations? Radioisotopes and study of radioisotopes like sodium iodide, I-131, their storage conditions, their precautions, and pharmaceutical applications of radiopharmaceuticals, why they are needed inside the body. Like the radio, because we generally get scared that the radioactive elements, they are harmful, but they are required in the body. Under what circumstances and what physiological conditions they are required, that will be covered under this section. So I will be dealing up with the module 3, that is the gastrointestinal agents of the syllabus. So the objective of this unit, this particular, that is gastrointestinal agents, to have the basic knowledge about the acidifiers, know about the acidifying agents. What are these acidifying agents? Then you will know about the various inorganic compounds which are acting as the acidifying agents, and you will also be able to understand the medicinal and pharmaceutical importance of these acidifying agents. First of all, before going into the details of these acidifiers or acidifying agents, we have to know about what is the basic of gastrointestinal tract. What is gastrointestinal tract? Gastrointestinal tract, or it is also pronounced as GI tract or GIT, or the digestive tract or the digestion tract and the alimentary canal. You can pronounce it like that only. It is the tract from the mouth. It starts from the mouth and till the anus, which includes all the organs of the digestive system in the humans as well as other animals. Food taken in through the mouth is digested to extract nutrients, because why we take food? We have to get the nourishment. But nourishment in form of what? In the form of nutrients which are required by our body to carry out various functions. As you know, the smallest unit of body is the cell. See, and there are and cells form the tissues to organs to organ systems. But for smooth working of any organ system, the total network of the body, it has to be in proper shape, and the energy is obtained from various diet supplements or nutrients. But these nutrients are taken up. It cannot be, see, as if we take food, it cannot just directly that we have taken our food, maybe roti, chapati, chawal, anything else. So directly it will go into the system and we get the nourishment. No, a proper journey of the this food, it is there, and the tract from where this journey starts and ends up, it is the gastrointestinal tract. So these the nutrition has to be taken from the these in the form of the nutrients which are extracted from the digested food, because if the food is not digested, it will leave the body as it is, and we will suffer from the malnutrition also, and we will not be able to absorb the energy. So, food taken in through the mouth is digested to extract nutrients and absorb energy, and the waste is expelled as feces or fecal matter or the excreta. The mouth, the esophagus, stomach, and intestines, they are all the parts of the GIT or the gastrointestinal tract. The human gastrointestinal tract consists of, as I have already told, esophagus, stomach, and intestines, and it is divided into upper and lower GITs. Upper GIT and lower GIT. What is upper lower GIT, or what is composed of upper GIT or gastrointestinal tract? It consists of the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, and the duodenum. After duodenum, the food leaves and goes into the intestines. So the lower gastrointestinal tract, it includes most of the small intestine and all the large intestine. Uh, this slide shows how the journey or the fate of the food that we take, or the general role of the gastrointestinal tract. See, this is the oral cavity, that is our mouth. It is composed of oral cavity, teeth, and tongue. You see, that process of digestion, it starts in the body the moment you open your mouth to have food, and the moment the food enters the mouth, the very first step of digestion is that only. So what is the role of our oral cavity? It is the mechanical breakdown, because we cannot just swallow the food, it has to be broken down, and for that purpose we have got the teeth. So mechanical breakdown, mixing with the salivary secretions. You just imagine, even after just on imagining that you have got the lunch time or you have to take the food, the saliva starts doing its work, and the moment the food enters the your mouth, the saliva starts secreted. Its secretion starts and it gets up mixing up with the food. The teeth, they do the mechanical breakdown, cutting the food into the small parts. And the saliva, what it does, it helps in the, it starts mixing with the food particles. Then these are the salivary glands here. What they do, they yeah, help in the secretion of the, there is the secretion of lubricant, lubricating fluid, that is saliva, which contains enzymes that initiate digestion. As I've already told you, that the moment the food enters your mouth, even if you do not chew, just for example, just keep the food in your mouth for just say 10 to 20 seconds, your mouth will be full of saliva. So that saliva is very important, and you'll know that uh, so many people, they in the videos you must have watched, or your elders must have told you that we have to chew the food properly. We have to chew the food properly because the smaller the particle size, the better is the mixing with the saliva. So this has this lubricating fluid. It contains enzyme and it starts the process of digestion. Then what it does this pharynx propel the food into the esophagus. This tube-like structure, this is the esophagus. What this esophagus does, it carries out the transport of food into the stomach. Now, this is the gateway where the food, the semi-solid food, it enters the stomach. And see, the moment the food enters the stomach, it leads to the chemical breakdown of food by the acid. See, acid is present, the hydrochloric acid is present in the, it is not as it is present, it is secreted as the food approaches stomach. The parietal cells, they start releasing hydrochloric acid. Now, there will be, if acid is there, you see, if you put acid on anything, it will start, breaking down. So the chemical reaction will be there. So chemical breakdown of the food by acid takes place in the stomach. Mechanical breakdown via muscular contraction. There are so many muscular contractions. So double the work is there, like chemical breakdown as well as mechanical breakdown via muscular contractions. After this, uh, the food enters the small intestine. Where what happens in the small intestine? See, half of the job is done by our teeth, or you can say our mouth or saliva and the stomach. And after this thing, the food enters the small intestine. What small intestine does? Enzymatic digestion. uh, there are lot many enzymes which are present in the saliva, in the stomach, and in the small intestine. Then enzymatic digestion and absorption of water, it takes place in case of small intestine. The organic substrates, vitamins, ions, and hosts defense. It all happens. It all takes place in the case of small intestine. In this small intestine, after small intestine, but before doing that, see, there is importance of liver, pancreas, and gallbladder. Directly, they are not part of GIT, but they help. How they help? Like in the what liver does? Liver secretes bile. Okay, bile, that is, it is important for lipid digestion. The fats that we take, that cannot be digested without the help of bile. Storage of nutrients, production of cellular fuel, that is the energy that is required, the plasma proteins, clotting factors, and detoxification and all these things happen in case of liver. Now come to the pancreas. What these pancreas do? Secretion of buffers and digestive enzymes by exocrine cells, secretion of hormones by endocrine cells to regulate digestion. All these functions are played by liver and pancreas. Then come to the gallbladder. What gallbladder does? It stores or concentrates the bile. And as I already told you, bile helps in the digestion of fats. Then after the absorption of the nutrients or ingredients from the small intestine, then food enters the large intestine. See here. Large intestine, what it does, it causes dehydration and compaction of the indigestible material. The digestible material, all the job is over in case of small intestine. After small intestine, it reaches large intestine where the absorption of water is there, compaction of the indigestible material is there for elimination, resorption of water and electrolytes, and again the host defense. So, in brief, I have given the outlook of the fate of the food, and after this thing, the food is excreted out from the body through anus. See, as I told you that if the GIT, the function of the GIT, but if the GIT is impaired, that is, there is some problem in case of gastrointestinal tract, what will happen? There are so many conditions that can take place. Like if there is, just start from the stomach. As the food, if you do not, there is a common saying in Hindi कि दांतों का काम आंतों से नहीं लेना चाहिए. आंतों means intestine. तो दांतों का काम क्या है? To chew the food, to break down the food. If we simply in our so fast life cycle or lifestyle, what we do, चलते फिरते खाना खाना, ठीक है, we do not give enough time. At least we should bite our food 32 times. 32 दांत और हर दांत का एक एक काम. So 32 times we have to chew our bite because it has to be made completely blend with the saliva. And after that, what it will do, it will through the pharynx, it will go into the through the esophagus, it will go into the stomach. Now, acid is very important, and you must have heard a term that so many people or so many yogis or yogacharyas, they say that we should not drink water with food or just after the food. Why? I will tell you. After the food enters the stomach, there is hydrochloric acid that is present. Without hydrochloric acid, the chemical reaction will not take place and the food will not be uh, broken down further if hydrochloric acid is not there. So there are two conditions, either the complete absentia or absence of hydrochloric acid or an insufficient secretion by the parietal cells. So both these conditions, they are very much harmful. Like, and this condition, if there is total absence, this is known as achlorhydria. A means without or absence. Chlor means chlorine. Hydria, so HCl, the other term for HCl is chlorhydria. So there is complete absence of hydrochloric acid. The condition is known as achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. Hypo means lesser amount of hydrochloric acid that will be formed. So, what will happen? The production of hydrochloric acid in gastric secretion of the stomach and other digestive organs is absent or low in case of achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. The other thing is, if there is over secretion of hydrochloric acid, then what will happen? All these things are when your GIT is not proper. The excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid in the stomach, it leads to hyperacidity and it can cause acid enzyme imbalance and it may finally lead to ulcers, inflammation and pain. Like sometimes we say to our colleagues or friends or in our family, I do not want to have food because I'm having acidity or hyperacidity or खट्टी डकारें आना बहुत ज्यादा. So we or heartburn is there. So that is over secretion of hyperacidity. This is the importance of this hydrochloric acid. Like why people say we should not drink water, because if acid is already there present in a proper amount, but we drink water and that hydrochloric acid is suppressed or it is diluted unnecessarily. If this dilution is there, so that hydrochloric acid, it will not be able to act upon your food and it will not be able to break it down further. Okay, so if it is not utilized, then obviously बात है कि there will be problem in the acid enzyme balance, and it may ultimately, if the acid is more, it can even lead to ulcers, which is a very painful condition. The third problem with improper GIT is that the accumulation of toxins, gases, toxic substances, or insufficient absorption of fluid and electrolytes in intestines. It stimulates the intestine motility, leading to frequent diarrhea. So, the accumulation of such type of toxins, it has to be avoided. Nobody does it deliberately, but if such type of problems are there, then it will lead to diarrhea. Then fourth is the insufficient intestine motility. See how the food, proceeds or progresses in the body, in from the intestines. The motion is like this and this. Like this motion is known as peristaltic motion or peristaltic movement. If this peristaltic movement is not proper, this will lead to, because in the large intestine, what you see, the food is ultimately drawn after the digestion. The indigestible food ultimately it is pushed towards the rectum. So if the proper peristalsis is not there, the food will stay there for a longer time. If it is staying there for a longer time, more and more water will be absorbed by the large intestine. If that is there, then the indigestible or the waste material, it will be uh, devoid of water, and this water helps to get rid of that material in the form of feces. So this will lead to constipation. This is the fourth problem that is associated with this. Then the next problem is this inadequate saliva or inadequate secretion of saliva. Now what will happen? If saliva is not there, yeah, it is not secreted in a proper way or adequate amount, it will make the food difficult to swallow. And if it is difficult to swallow, you can imagine the very first step of the journey of the food will be hindered, and it will ultimately affect the digestion. It is possible to bring the all these conditions that I have already discussed above to their normal state, and the various agents which are used for this are products for altering gastric pH like acidifying agents and antacids. कम pH है या कम एसिड है तो बढ़ा दो विद द हेल्प ऑफ एसिडिफाइंग एजेंट्स, और अगर ज्यादा हो रहा है तो उसके इफेक्ट को कम किया जाए विद द हेल्प ऑफ एंटासिड्स. There are various protectives and adsorbents which help to get rid of the toxins which are ingested deliberately or accidentally. Then there are saline cathartics or the laxatives. Like as I have discussed about the problem of constipation, so these can be this problem can be overcome with the help of cathartics or laxatives. And the next is the emetics. If at all some poisoning is there or some other material is there, you want to get rid of the that material from the body, some emetics have to be there. So gastrointestinal agents, they are as follows: acidifying agents or acidifiers, antacids, adsorbent for intestinal toxins, and cathartics. Now coming to acidifying agents or acidifiers. Acidifying agents are used in a condition when there is absence or insufficient hydrochloric acid in the stomach, which leads to a disease called achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. Achlorhydria, it occurs because of two reasons. When the gastric acid secretion is devoid of HCl, है ही नहीं है, उस gastric acid में जो secretion है वो HCl की secretion हो ही नहीं रही, even after stimulating with histamine phosphate, then achlorhydria happens. Or the other reason for that is the long-term use of proton pump inhibitors, that is PPIs, like omeprazole and lansoprazole. See, there is a proton pump that is present, that takes place inside that body. What proton pump does, it liberates or it generates the H plus ion, that is hydrogen ion or the proton ion, H plus. So if there is the persons who are suffering from some ulcers, so the person is taking the proton pump inhibitors for a longer time. What happens then with the long term use of this thing? Then the acid forgets to release, or the parietal cells, they snub to release the protons or the hydrogen ion or the acid. So that is the one, that is also one of the reasons why the hydrochloric acid is not generated or released in the body. Then it can lead to hypochlorhydria or the reduced hydrochloric acid production and ultimately lead to achlorhydria. The gastric hydrochloric acid secreted by stomach walls. It kills the bacteria in the ingested food or the drink, whatever you have taken. It softens the fibrous food and it helps in the secretion of pepsin. What is pepsin? Pepsin is the proteolytic enzyme. And you know how pepsin is produced? It is produced from pepsinogen only if the pH is below 6. The basic requirement for formation of pepsin is proteolytic, that is breakdown of proteins. Proteo means proteins, lytic means or lytic means todna or breaking up. So this pepsin enzyme is very much required and it is generated only and only if the pH is below 6. It exerts its best proteolytic activity even below the pH 3.5. When pepsin is present, the insufficient or absence of gastric HCl, it will lead to lack of pepsin activity. And you can imagine if the pepsin is not there or pepsin is not acting properly, the proteins will not be broken down into smaller particles. Achlorhydria patients, they may also suffer from pernicious anemia. Why pernicious anemia? Because of the lack of intrinsic factors. For example, the proteins which are necessary for carrying the vitamin B12 through intestinal walls. So they may, the B12 will not be traveled or reach the proper site where they are required, and that is why the person may suffer from the pernicious anemia. The absence or insufficient secretion of gastric hydrochloric acid, it will impair preliminary digestion due to absence of proteolytic enzyme, that is pepsin activity. I again repeat, the absence or insufficient secretion of gastric HCl will impair preliminary digestion, the very first step of the digestion, due to absence of proteolytic enzyme pepsin activity. तो पहला ही स्टेप गड़बड़ा जाएगा अगर हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड वहां पर नहीं होगा तो जो एज आर डाइट इज composed of carbohydrates, proteins and fats, and proteins are the building blocks of our body. We have to take uh, a balanced diet and protein portion is definitely important. And so the very first step of the digestion will be hindered. Now, the achlorhydria patients, there are two kinds. Those who respond to histamine phosphate stimulation and remain free of gastric HCl. Whenever they are given histamine phosphate stimulation and they remain free of gastric secretion or gastric hydrochloric acid. And those who respond to histamine phosphate stimulation for the response of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. So these are two types of patients, and these factors, they lead to GIT disturbance like frequent bowel movements. बार बार आपको टॉयलेट जाना पड़ेगा इसके लिए, और इट में लीड टू माइल्ड डायरिया. द एपिगैस्ट्रिक पेन, जब कहते हैं ना एपिगैस्ट्रियम में पेन हो रहा है, जलन हो रही है, हार्ट बर्न हो रहा है, मुझे बहुत जलन हो रही है, दैट इज द एपिगैस्ट्रिक पेन. एंड द sensitivity to the spicy food. So some persons are there, they are not in a position to take the spicy foods. मुझे बिल्कुल भी मसालेदार खाना नहीं खाना है, मैं नहीं खा सकती, मुझे जलन. द मोमेंट दोज पर्सन्स टेक spicy food, they have the problem of this epigastric pain or acidity or heartburn. So, what are there is one other definition for acidifiers. Like, what are acidifiers? They are inorganic chemicals that either produce or either they produce acid or they become acid on their own. I will explain you how. These chemicals, they increase the level of gastric acid in the stomach when ingested, thus decreasing the pH of the stomach. There are four types of acidifiers. The gastric acidifiers, they are used in controlling pH in the stomach. Drugs which are used to restore the acidity of stomach in patients suffering from achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. I repeat, what are gastric acidifiers? Gastric means somewhere in the stomach. They are used in controlling the pH in the stomach. The drugs which are used to restore the acidity of stomach in patients suffering from achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. Second are the urinary acidifiers. Urinary acidifiers क्या होते हैं? They are used in controlling the pH in the urine. These are the drugs which are used to retain acidity of urine to enable treatment of some types of urinary tract infections where the acidic pH is required. So these are such type of acidifiers and they are called as the urinary acidifiers. Then third are the systemic acidifiers. Systemic means system, inside the blood, inside the circulation, systemic circulation. You must have, you will read in the anatomy and physiology. So systemic acidifiers, they are used in controlling pH in all the parts of the body. In all the parts, they are not restricted to gastric or the stomach. They are used in the controlling the pH in all the parts of the body. The drugs which are able to neutralize the alkaline body fluids. The drugs which are able to neutralize the alkaline body fluids. कि body fluids अगर ज़्यादा alkaline हो गए, ज़्यादा basic हो गए, तो they are able to neutralize those fluids, particularly in the blood in patients suffering from systemic alkalosis. See, one is the term that is acid, the other term is the base or alkali. So if in the blood, in the system, alkali is more, है ना, तो अल्कली अगर ज्यादा है बॉडी के अंदर तो उस अल्कली को न्यूट्रलाइज कैसे करेंगे आप? एसिड से. सो द पर्सन हु इज सफरिंग फ्रॉम alkalosis, he or she will be given the drug that is acidifier. And fourth is the acids. They are used as pharmaceutical aid in the preparation, laboratory, quality control, etc. Now, first of all, I will deal with the ammonium chloride. Ammonium chloride क्या होता है? NH4Cl. Its formula is NH4Cl and its molecular weight, it is 53.49. The synonyms are salmiac और अमोनियम म्यूरिएट और एमाक्लोर. कई बार क्या होता है, इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चंस आ जाते हैं. अगर आपको ये वन वर्ड आंसर में पूछा जा सकता है, अगर आप कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहे हो वहां पे अक्सर क्वेश्चन आ जाता है. हम लोग पढ़ते रह गए अमोनियम क्लोराइड और उसने पूछ लिया एमक्लोर, तो then we get confused at that time. Or salmiac, these are the synonyms for ammonium chloride. Now coming to the standards. क्या होता है अमोनियम क्लोराइड? इट कंटेन्स नॉट लेस देन. नॉट लेस देन मीन्स कि इतना तो चाहिए ही चाहिए, इससे कम हो ही नहीं सकता. नॉट लेस देन 99.5% ऑफ अमोनियम क्लोराइड calculated with reference to the dried substance. You see 99.5%, it has to be perfectly dry. अगर उसके अंदर मॉइस्चर प्रेजेंट है तो कोई उसकी सेंस नहीं है. इट हैज टू बी कंप्लीटली ड्राई, देन यू कैन से दैट इट इज नॉट लेस देन 99.5%. देन कमिंग टू इट्स मेथड ऑफ प्रेपरेशन. कैसे बनता है? इट इज प्रिपेयर्ड बाय न्यूट्रलाइजिंग हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड विद अमोनिया. NH3, it is a base. HCl, it is an acid, hydrochloric acid. It will lead to the formation of ammonium chloride, and mind it, ammonium chloride, it is a salt. Okay, it is salt and it is soluble. It is freely or highly soluble. The resulting solution of ammonium chloride is evaporated to dryness. जो भी solution निकल के आया जब आप उसको dry करोगे जो पीछे powder बचा that powder is only ammonium chloride. Now it is also prepared by treating ammonium sulfate with sodium chloride, or see 2NaCl, or this is ammonium, this is sodium chloride, this is ammonium sulfate. When they react with each other, it will lead to the reaction ammonia, HCl, and again Na2SO4. Now again this ammonia will react with HCl to give rise to ammonium chloride. It is highly moisture absorbing. I will let us go into the physical properties of ammonium chloride. It is a white, fine crystalline powder. It is pure white in color, and when it is perfectly dry, you will get fine crystals of this. It is available as a crystalline powder. It is odorless. Odor means smell. तो जैसे अगर आप इसको सूंघते हो तो इसमें कोई भी smell नहीं होती है. It is completely odorless and has cooling saline taste. Whenever you taste it, slightly saline taste, नमकीन सा taste आपको इसका मिलेगा. It is hygroscopic in nature. Whenever you keep it in, if the lid is not properly closed, then it will immediately absorb moisture, and this is known as hygroscopic. So the main important point is that it has to be closed in a, or it is to be stored in a tightly closed container which should be completely free from moisture. It is freely soluble in water, that is why it absorbs moisture. जैसे आप इसको रख दोगे वातावरण में, it will immediately absorb water. It is freely soluble in water because it is a salt, but it is slightly soluble in alcohol. Its 0.8% weight by volume solution is isotonic with our serum. 0.8% weight by volume. Now there are some terms that V by V, W by V, and W by W. Weight by weight, weight by volume, volume by volume. 0.8% weight by volume का मतलब है कि 0.8 grams जो है वो solid form में grams, it has to be dissolved in 100 ml of water. So it is 0.8% weight by volume solution. It is completely isotonic with serum. Coming to its chemical properties, in its vapor form. अच्छा, there is एक चीज और है जो मुझे आपको बतानी है, that is if it is placed in, like if you heat it directly, it will sublime, or it will carry out sublimation. What is sublimation? You see there are 2-3 terms. One is evaporation, that is from liquid to the gaseous phase. Okay, then there is one term that is known as sublimation. Like if you heat a solid without converting into liquid, it directly gets converted into the gaseous phase, that is known as sublimation. Okay, so if you heat it, then sublimation of this takes place. It sublimes on heating. And 5% of the solution of in water, its pH is around 4.5 to 6, so it is slightly acidic. It now how to in its vapor form, it dissociates to form ammonia and hydrochloric acid. See, NH4Cl, it's a reversible reaction. It gets dissociated into ammonia and hydrochloric acid. And as far as its assay is concerned, कि कैसे इसका अनुमान लगाया जा सकता है, इसका assay कैसे करते हैं, it is acid by simple acid base titrations. What is that? The neutral formaldehyde solution, it is added so that ammonium chloride, it will be converted to methanamine and hydrochloric acid. The liberated acid is titrated with 0.1 normal sodium hydroxide using phenolphthalein as indicator. Here in the first step you can see HCl is liberated, and this HCl is further reacted with sodium hydroxide to release sodium chloride and water. So each 1 ml of, ये जो titration कर रहे हो, each 1 ml of 0.1 normal of NaOH is equivalent to 0.05349 gram of ammonium chloride, that is NH4Cl. Coming to its incompatibility, it is incompatible with alkaline earth metals, carbonates, and metal salts of lead and silver. It is incompatible with alkaline earth metals, carbonates, metal salts of lead and silver. Now coming to its identification tests, how this ammonium chloride can be identified. कैसे पता चलेगा कि present है कि नहीं है? This is known as qualitative analysis. Identification test जब आप करते हो, so it gives that ammonium chloride. It gives the reaction of ammonium, salts, and chlorides. A few milligram of the substance when it is heated with sodium hydroxide. देखिए अमोनियम क्लोराइड क्या है? If I go to my previous slide, it is available as NH4Cl, NH4 plus and Cl minus. Overall, it is neutral. So, a few milligram of this substance, that is why I have mentioned here that it gives the reactions of ammonium salts as well as the chlorides. So, few milligram of the substance is heated with sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide means hydroxyl ion or hydroxide ion, leading to evolution of ammonia gas. Ammonia is available as in the form of liquid as well as the gaseous form. So it will evolve as ammonia gas, which is recognizable by its odor. बहुत typical odor होती है अमोनिया की, मतलब अगर उसकी बॉटल खुल जाए, अगर लिक्विड अमोनिया की भी, you cannot even stand there. It is such a pungent smell. So leading to evolution of ammonia, which is recognizable by its odor and by its action on moist red litmus paper. Moist red litmus paper, जैसे आप इसको रखोगे, its color will change. Then, how its purity can be tested? The sample is tested for the presence of following impurities. Some impurities can be present there because in the first unit, as I already gave a brief description, you will study about various what are the types of impurities. So कौन सी impurities इसके अंदर present हो सकती हैं? They are arsenic. It should not be more than 2 ppm. ppm means parts per million. कि 1 million अगर आप proportion ले रहे हो तो उसमें 2 से ज्यादा उसकी रेशियो नहीं होनी चाहिए. That is, it should not be, the arsenic should not be more than 2 parts per million. Sulfate should not be more than 150 ppm. That is 150 parts per million. And calcium should not be more than 200 ppm. Iron should not be more than 20 ppm. Heavy metals, they should not be more than 10 ppm. तो बहुत heavy metals है इसके अंदर, they should not be more than 10 ppm. And loss on drying should not be more than 1%. जैसे आप किसी कंपाउंड को आप ड्राई कर रहे हो, इसको अमोनियम क्लोराइड को, तो उसका जो लॉस है मतलब 1% तक की गुंजाइश है. इट शुड नॉट बी मोर देन 1%. स्टोरेज, as I have already told you, it should be stored in a well closed container, tightly closed container, क्योंकि it will easily absorb moisture as it is highly hygroscopic in nature. डेली डोज की अगर आप बात करो तो इट कैन बी 3 to 6 ग्राम डेली इन डिवाइडेड डोजेजेस. इट में बी BD, TDS, QD, QID व्हाटसोएवर. तो इट इज मैक्सिमम इज 6. इसके बीच की रेंज में आप कभी भी इसको ले सकते हैं. इट इज अवेलेबल एज tablets or injection or syrup. It can be present like that only. And there is one there are uses of ammonium chloride in general. The number one, the very first thing is that it is used as a systemic acidifier. What is systemic acidifier? It is helpful in producing mild acidosis at a dose of 2 gram daily orally. It gets rapidly absorbed and converted into urea in the liver. The decrease in the pH of urine occurs due to the liberation of its anion into the bloodstream and extracellular fluids. It is also used as expectorant. You see, there are expectorant means, अगर आप इसको तोड़ते हो इस word को, expectorant means expel out. Sometimes we are having cough, but we are not in a position to expel out the mucus or the जिसको हम कहते हैं कि बलगम है यहाँ पर, तो हम इसको expel out नहीं अगर कर पा रहे, तो it is used as expectorant. कोई भी बॉटल उठा के देख लेना आप कफ सिरप की, ammonium chloride is present there as an active ingredient. So it is used as an ingredient in expectorant cough syrup in doses of 300 mg to 1 gram depending upon the बच्चों को दे रहे हो, बड़ों को दे रहे हो, कैसे दे रहे हो, उस हिसाब से इसकी डोज डिजाइन की जाती है. Third is the use is the diuretic. What are diuretic or why? What are diuretics? They increase the flow of urine or micturition बढ़ाते हैं diuretics जो होते हैं. So it is given for its diuretic action, especially to help the excretion of overdosage of some basic drugs. अगर कुछ basic drugs की overdosage आ गई है, such as amphetamines or in the treatment of lead poisoning. So this ammonium chloride is given to increase its excretion. So they are used as तीन uses बताइए आपको, systemic acidifier, expectorant and as a diuretic. Now coming to the dilute hydrochloric acid. It is another acidifier that is used. The other name for hydrochloric acid, it is also an important question that sometimes it is asked. The other name is muriatic acid or spirit of salt. These are the two synonyms which are used for hydrochloric acid. Basically, what is hydrochloric acid? It is a gas, and the hydrochloric acid, what we in the liquid form, what you see in your laboratories, it is the 35 to 38% of the hydrochloric gas that is dissolved so as to carry out the laboratory tests or whatever the requirement is there. In case and it is also hydrochloric acid, it is also the known as the mineral acid. Why it is known as mineral acid? Because it is formed from the mineral salt. कौन सा mineral salt? Like NaCl and H2SO4. It leads to the formation of hydrochloric acid and Na2SO4 that I will show you in my upcoming slides. So the 10% weight by volume of hydrochloric acid, it is used and the limit is 9.5 to 10.5% weight by volume, and it is used as the acidifier in case of GIT. The ingredients are hydrochloric acid 274.09 grams and purified water 726. And the properties, it is a colorless liquid. अगर हम liquid की बात कर रहे हैं, the acid which is generated, it is a colorless liquid. It is strongly acidic in dilute form also, and it has a specific gravity of 1.04 to 1.05. Now coming to its identification tests, how the hydrochloric acid it is identified. It gives all the reactions of chloride ion, that is Cl minus. When potassium permanganate is added into the hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, chlorine gas is evolved or liberated. Coming to its assay, that how it can be assayed, the accurate amount, that is 10 gram of hydrochloric acid, it is transferred to a stoppered flask. It is transferred to a stoppered flask which is having 40 ml of water. Now this solution, it is titrated with 1N sodium hydroxide, 1 normal NaOH के साथ इसकी titration करनी है using methyl orange as the indicator. See, you can see the reaction over here. NaOH plus HCl, what it will lead to formation? NaCl plus H2O. And each 1 ml of sodium hydroxide, it is equivalent to 0.03646 gram of hydrochloric acid. Coming to its storage conditions, it should be stored in a well closed container of glass or other material at a temperature not more than 30 degrees centigrade. And coming to its uses, it's used as an acidifier in the case of achlorhydria. Coming to the dose, achlorhydria, that I have already told you, Dose is 0.6 to 8 ml. Usually, 5 ml dose of dilute HCl is added to the 20 ml of water. As it is, you cannot take. See, I have told you what is. किसी से भी अगर आप पूछेंगे कि या कोई अगर आपसे एक क्वेश्चन पूछता है कि what is dilute HCl, you dilute HCl is 10%, normally 10% weight by weight of hydrochloric acid, but you cannot take 10% as it is, like I am taking it as an acidifier. No, the 5 ml dose of HCl, dilute HCl, is added to 20 ml of water. It provides 15 milli equivalents of the acid, and then at that dose only you can take it as a systemic acidifier. Cautions क्या है इसके लिए? Drinking straw is recommended in case of dilute HCl to avoid the direct exposure of HCl with the dental enamel. It can harm your dental enamel, and also it can harm the buccal cavity. So it can cause the scratching of the dental enamel, so it has to be taken with the straw. Now coming to some important questions which can be asked from acidifiers, like classify gastrointestinal agents with examples. Okay, so you have to classify what are the various type of gastrointestinal agents, like acidifiers hai, antacids hai, what are cathartics hai, what are these agents. Then what are acidifiers? The next question is what are acidifiers. Next is what is gastric achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. These questions can be asked. Give the preparation and assay of ammonium chloride. Give the preparation, uses, assay of dilute hydrochloric acid. And the next question can be what are the uses of ammonium chloride? Assay of ammonium chloride, uses of ammonium chloride, the basic reactions of say hydrochloric acid or ammonium chloride, all these have to be, they may be asked in the questions. Now coming to my next topic, that is the antacids. अगर मैं रिवीजन की बात करूं तो till now what we have learned about the GIT, how GIT works, what are the various ailments which can be present in the GIT. After that, what are the various GIT agents to treat those particular ailments. Until now I have discussed about the acidifying agents or the acidifiers. They are used in the conditions of achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria. How they are used, in what proportion or what dose they are used, and what are the basic uses of these agents. We have also learnt about the gastric acidifiers, urinary acidifiers, systemic acidifiers, and various types of acids. And the two main acidifiers that we have read till now are ammonium chloride, that is NH4Cl, and dilute hydrochloric acid, that is dilute HCl. Now coming to the my next topic, that is antacids. What are ये तो चीजें डिस्कस की हैं. If the amount of acid is either not produced in the body, in the stomach, or if it is not released or secreted in a proper or adequate amount. Now there is one other condition, that if the acid is present in a large proportion, then what you will do? Then what are the various problems that can be there? So we have to you will know about the antacids. What is the definition? What are the antacids actually? What are the various types of antacids? And after that we will discuss about the antacid drugs, their properties, their assays, and their medicinal uses. Okay, as I told you that GIT, it includes the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, that is composed of duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, large intestine, cecum and colon, rectum, anus, and its accompanying exocrine glands like the salivary glands, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. ये सारा आपका GIT हो गया. Now drugs affecting the GIT system, they are used in the treatment of, if there is more of acid, then they are used in the treatment of gastric acidity, peptic ulcers, and gastroesophageal reflux disease. इसको GERD, GERD भी बोलते हैं. Bowel motility disorders, like if the peristalsis is not there or the bowel motility is not proper, गैस्ट्रोपैरेसिस भी बोला जाता है, और डिलेड गैस्ट्रिक एम्प्टिंग ड्यू टू पार्शियल पैरालिसिस ऑफ द stomach muscles, because if the muscles of the stomach are not properly working, or they are paralyzed due to one reason or the other, then also this motility of the bowel will not be proper, which can lead to constipation also, or it can lead to diarrhea also, and for the treatment of nausea and vomiting. Now let us come and discuss about the gastric acid production. What is gastric acid production? Gastric acid production is secreted from parietal cells when stimulated by the vagus nerve, histamine and gastrin. Again I will repeat, gastric acid is secreted from the parietal cells when stimulated by the vagus nerve, histamine and gastrin. Carbon dioxide and hydrogen, water, CO2 and H2O, they react inside the parietal cells under the influence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. As we in the introduction part we discussed that there are so many types of enzymes which are present in our GIT. So with the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme, the carbon dioxide and H2O, that is water, they will react in the parietal cells to form bicarbonate, that is HCO3 and H plus. Basically, HCO3 minus and H plus, they are nothing but they lead to the formation of carbonic acid, that is H2CO3. This is a reversible reaction, and continuously this H2CO3 it gets converted to H plus and HCO3 minus, and vice versa. H plus is then pumped into the lumen of the stomach by hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. Then chloride ion is also secreted from the parietal cells into the lumen by simple diffusion. This hydrogen ion, chloride ion and water, they combine in the lumen to form hydrochloric acid. See how this is generated, hydrochloric acid. As it is, hydrochloric acid is not placed in the body, in the stomach. It is continuously with the process of these type of reactions by the in the parietal cells, this is secreted. So this H plus, Cl minus and water, they combine in the lumen to form hydrochloric acid. The bicarbonate ion, that is HCO3 minus, they produce is it is this HCO3, it is secreted into the bloodstream. This HCO3 minus, it is secreted in the bloodstream, but body can produce excess stomach acid if there is gastric infection. जितना रिक्वायर्ड है उतना ही बनाती है बॉडी, फालतू में नहीं बनता. देयर इज नो एक्स्ट्रा सिक्रेशन. बट if the body, you know, our body is very intelligent, and we do not, the various cells of the body, they do not secrete anything in excess. Only that much amount which is required, it is produced or secreted. But in case of some gastric infection like H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori, it can produce excess of acid. Too much of gastrin hormone is there, or under stress. These are the three conditions where the stomach can produce excess of acid, or it can produce excess of acid. Number one is some gastric infection because of Helicobacter pylori. Number two, too much of gastrin hormone. And number three, if we are under stress, then this will be formed in excess. Having too much acid in your stomach, it will lead to hyperchlorhydria. What is hyper? See, our body does not need anything hypo or hyper. Hypertension ho to problem, hypotension ho to problem, hyperglycemia to problem, hypoglycemia to problem. Hyperchlorhydria then problem, hypochlorhydria then problem. So it has to be in a normal range. So too much of acid in the stomach will lead to hyperchlorhydria. This slide shows in the parietal cells what is happening. See, H2O plus carbon dioxide with the help of carbonic anhydrase that I have already explained you, it will lead to formation of H2CO3, that is known as carbonic acid. This carbonic acid gets converted into HCO3 minus, that is bicarbonate ion, and H plus ion. This HCO3, see, this HCO3 ion, it is released into the blood. Okay, this H plus ion, that is hydrogen ion, it is released in the lumen of the gastric pit, and through the help of this chloride and H plus, excess of HCl will be produced. When hyperacidity occurs, the result can range from, there are so many problems that can lead because of hyperacidity. Gastritis, number one, gastritis. See, wherever, it is a thumb rule that wherever the term is itis, this means inflammation. So gastro means gastric mucosa. So it is a general inflammation of gastric mucosa. ठीक है, जैसे हम कहते हैं पैंक्रियाटाइटिस, तो पैंक्रियाज की इन्फ्लेमेशन इज पैंक्रियाटाइटिस. गैस्ट्रेटाइटिस मींस इन्फ्लेमेशन ऑफ द गैस्ट्रिक म्यूकोसा. Number one problem is because of hyperacidity, that is gastritis. Number two, peptic ulcer or esophageal ulcer. That is, these peptic ulcers or esophageal ulcer, it is in the lower end of the esophagus. Okay. Third is the gastric ulcer, that is directly in the stomach. That can also take place because of the excess of acid. And fourth is the duodenum ulcers. All these type of ulcers or inflammation, gastric inflammation, these are the outcomes of hyperacidity. Symptoms क्या होते हैं hyperacidity के? Number one, excess secretion of acid into the stomach or impaired resistance by the lining of the stomach or reflux into the esophagus may produce symptoms like burning sensation. बहुत जलन हो रही है, हार्ट बर्न हो रहा है, चेस्ट में बर्न होना, एब्डोमिनल पेन होना, पेट में दर्द है, कई बार तो इसको एपिगैस्ट्रिक पेन भी बोलते हैं, पता ही नहीं चलता क्या हो रहा है. ठीक है, सो it is the heartburn or the burning sensation in the chest, abdominal pain, too much of the gas, or ultimately can also lead to constipation also. I repeat the symptoms: excess of secretion of acid into the stomach or impaired resistance by the lining of stomach or reflux into the esophagus may produce symptoms like burning sensation into the chest, abdominal pain, too much of gas, or constipation. Number two, hyperacidity also cause gastric reflux. कहते हैं खट्टे डकारे आ रही है, इसको बोलते हैं गैस्ट्रिक रिफ्लक्स होना. गैस्ट्राइटिस, इन्फ्लामेशन. अपसेट स्टमक, पेट में गड़बड़ हो रही है, कुछ खाना नहीं है, पीना नहीं, मुझे खाना नहीं खाना. We sometimes we try to avoid taking food because of this thing. Our body tells us that something is wrong inside. And heartburn. Now, till now we have discussed about the problems that if more and more of acid is there. अब remedies क्या है? ठीक है, so we have to take antacids. Antacids, if you break the term, that is anti-acid. So acid को anti जो चीज चलेगी, that is antacid. Against the acid, they are weak alkaline compounds used to neutralize hydrochloric acid in the stomach. जो stomach में hydrochloric acid पड़ा है, उसको neutralize कर दो. That is the role of these antacids. Antacids are the substances which reduce gastric acidity, resulting in an increase in the pH of the stomach and duodenum. Ultimately, excess of acid means pH is less. If pH is, if we negate or neutralize the effect of acid, what will happen? Ultimately, the pH will rise. So it will lead to the increase in pH of the stomach and duodenum. Then gastric acidity occurs due to excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid in stomach due to various reasons. The pH of the stomach is see 1.5 to 2.5. लेकिन मन में ये क्वेश्चन भी आ सकता है कि इतना ज्यादा पीएच है तो पेट जिंदा कैसे है, बचा कैसे है? बिकॉज देयर इज अ लाइनिंग अराउंड द स्टमक दैट इज नोन एज म्यूकोसा. तो अगर बहुत ज्यादा एसिड पड़ा ही हुआ है, खत्म ही नहीं हो रहा, इट कैन हार्म ऑल्सो, विच मे लीड टू पेप्टिक अल्सर ऑल्सो. So the pH of the stomach is 1.5 to 2.5 when empty, and it raises to 5.6 when food is ingested. जैसे खाना आया, it starts doing its work. Low pH is due to the presence of endogenous HCl, which is always present under physiological conditions. It is always there, endogenous and inbuilt hai, and it is always present under normal physiological conditions. Now coming to the criteria of an ideal antacid preparation, क्या क्या requirements होनी चाहिए एक ideal antacid preparation है. The antacid should not be absorbable, otherwise it can lead to systemic alkalosis. It should not, जैसे आपने antacid लिया, एसिड कहां पर पड़ा है, स्टमक में है, ठीक है. It should not get inside the circulation. पूरी तरह से absorb अगर हो गया, it will go into the system, to blood circulation, and it will lead to systemic alkalosis. तो जनरल बॉडी का जो pH वो बढ़ा देगा या alkaline कर देगा. That is known as systemic alkalosis. The antacid should not be a laxative nor causes constipation. हमें एक प्रॉब्लम दूर करनी है ना, दूसरी थोड़ी जनरेट करनी है उसके साथ साथ. तो इट शुड नाइदर एक्ट एज ए लैक्सेटिव, जिससे आपके लूज मोशंस हो जाए, और ऐसा भी नहीं होना चाहिए कि इट विल लीड टू कॉन्स्टिपेशन. सो अ बैलेंस हैज टू बी देयर. तो आइडियल की तो सिचुएशन कंडीशंस यही होती है आइडियल एंटासिड प्रेपरेशंस की. The antacid should exert its effect rapidly and over a long period of time. इंस्टेंट इफेक्ट होना चाहिए, ये नहीं कि अभी आपने एंटासिड लिया है और एक घंटे के आधे घंटे के बाद असर हो रहा है. इट हैज टू बी इंस्टेंट. इसके लिए एग्जांपल बताती हूँ आपको. वी ऑल मस्ट बी वाचिंग टीवी एंड यू कैन टेक द एग्जांपल ऑफ इनो. हम क्या बोलते हैं, फटाफट तुरंत, जैसे डाइजीन की एड आती है टीवी में, तुरंत द मोमेंट इन द एडवर्टाइजमेंट यू कैन सी द मोमेंट डाइजीन इज इनसाइड द एसिड गेट्स न्यूट्रलाइज. सो रैपिड एक्शन हैज टू बी देयर. Next point is the antacid should buffer in the range of 4 to 6. This is the pH. बहुत ज़्यादा alkaline भी नहीं हो जाना चाहिए, तो it should buffer in the range of 4 to 6. The reaction of the antacid with gastric HCl, hydrochloric acid, should not cause a large evolution of gas, because if gas evolution is there, it will further lead to many consequences. And last is it should probably inhibit pepsin, that is the proteolytic enzyme. Okay. मैकेनिज्म कोई पर्टिकुलर बहुत खास मैकेनिज्म तो नहीं है. बेसिकली इट इज अ न्यूट्रलाइजेशन रिएक्शन. एसिड है, एसिड पे आप बेस डाल रहे हो और द एक्सेस ऑफ एसिड गेट्स न्यूट्रलाइज. बट इट हैज टू बी माइंडेड द बेस दैट यू शुड टेक, इट हैज टू बी अ वीक बेस. बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग बेस हम नहीं ले सकते. वीक बेस हैज टू बी देयर. अल्टीमेटली द एसिडिटी विल बी गॉन. The antacids they were developed based on the hydroxides and carbonates of the group 2 and 3 metals as well as the bicarbonates of the alkali metals. All the antacids contain at least one of the following metals like aluminium, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, bismuth. Antacids help neutralize excess of acid produced in the stomach, that is hydrogen ion. Hydrogen ion ही तो reason है ना acidity का, acid generation का. तो it should neutralize acid which is present in the form of hydrogen ion. Concentration is reduced. And each antacid has a specific active ingredient. The ingredient, whether metallic or non-metallic, has a different effect on the gastric acid. So these things have to be managed, and they act similar to when an acid reacts with a hydroxide, a salt and water are produced as in the following equation. Here you can see hydrochloric acid plus NaOH. जो normal reaction है उसमें क्या हो रहा है, HCl. जो neutralization reaction की हम बात करें, HCl plus NaOH to give NaCl plus H2O. NaCl is the salt. Sodium bicarbonate, what will happen, HCl plus NaHCO3, it will lead to generation of NaCl, that is salt. वो तो बन गया H2O and CO2. यहाँ पर प्रॉब्लम आती है इस कार्बोनेट से बाइकार्बोनेट के केस में कि H2O and CO2 if they are present, so probably they should be avoided because H2O and CO2 पहले तो NaCl ने न्यूट्रलाइज कर दिया, जितना न्यूट्रल pH चाहिए था उतना हो गया, बट You see, H2O and CO2 are there. H2O and CO2 will lead to formation of H2CO3, that is carbonic acid. Carbonic acid मतलब H plus और HCO3 minus. अब न्यूट्रलाइजेशन करते करते क्या होगा कि H plus अल्टीमेटली अगेन इट विल लीड टू जनरेशन ऑफ हाइड्रोजन आयंस. तो जो हमारा पर्पज है वो सॉल्व नहीं हो पाएगा. ठीक है. Then calcium carbonate HCl plus CaCO3, calcium chloride plus H2O plus carbon dioxide. Magnesium compounds like MgO plus H2O, so give Mg, magnesium hydroxide, HCl, and MgOH2 will lead to the formation of HCl plus magnesium hydroxide, it will lead to formation of magnesium chloride and water. And aluminum compounds like AlOH3 plus HCl to give AlCO3 plus H2. All these are the basic neutralization reactions जो कि होते हैं. Now coming to the classification of antacids. Classification systemic, they are broadly classified into two classes, systemic and non-systemic. So systemic like absorbable antacids, soluble, readily absorbable and capable of producing systemic electrolyte alterations and alkalosis. For example, sodium bicarbonate. अब इनके केस में क्या होगा कि in the system they will be, if they are absorbed, they will go into the system. If they go into the system, just a minute. The presentation is here. If they go into the system, then what will happen? They will cause systemic alkalosis. So they should not be present as such. They should not be used. The examples are sodium bicarbonate. Then come to the non-systemic, non-absorbable antacids. Non-systemic, non-absorbable antacids. Okay. What these non-systemic are, that they are not absorbed from the body. So ultimately, what will happen if they are not absorbed from the body? They will not lead to systemic alkalosis. These are non-systemic or non-absorbable antacids. They are not absorbed to a significant extent and thus do not exert an appreciable systemic effect. Non-systemic antacids are divided into subtypes as under: aluminium containing antacids, aluminum hydroxide, aluminum phosphate, basic aluminum carbonate gel, etc. Calcium containing antacids like calcium carbonate, tribasic calcium phosphate, etc. Magnesium containing antacids, magnesium containing antacids like magnesium carbonate, magnesium hydroxide. See, aluminium and calcium containing antacids, they lead to constipation. Mind it, all the aluminium and calcium containing antacids, they cause constipation, whereas magnesium containing antacids, they lead to diarrhea or they may be laxatives. So a combination therapy has to be used. Like if we take the mixture of a combination of these two, like aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide along with magnesium trisilicate, this will lead to the, see, if the aluminum antacid, it is causing constipation, and side by side you are taking what you call magnesium antacid. So what they will cause? What they will cause? They will lead to एंटेगोनाइज ईच अदर कि अगर एक की वजह से कॉन्स्टिपेशन हो रही है तो दूसरा डायरिया कॉज कर देगा. तो क्या होगा? कॉन्स्टिपेशन प्लस डायरिया. आई मीन इफ the both of these effects, what this will show, this will ultimately be relieved from, the patient will be relieved from the problem of acidity, but at the same time there will be no impact on the gastric system or the bowel system. So combination antacid preparations are used like aluminum hydroxide gel and magnesium hydroxide gel, aluminum hydroxide gel and magnesium trisilicate. Brief overview of the antacids non-systemic or non-absorbable and systemic or absorbable. Non-systemic are compounds that are not absorbed into the systemic circulation. Systemic antacids are absorbed into the systemic circulation. Their anionic group neutralizes the hydrogen ions in the gastric acid in the case of non-systemic. This releases their cationic group, which combines with the HCO3 minus from the pancreas to form an insoluble basic compound that is excreted in the fecal matter. But on the same side, systemic antacids, they have cationic groups that does not form insoluble basic compounds with HCO3 minus. Non-systemic antacids, these agents do not produce metabolic alkalosis क्योंकि वो system में तो आया ही नहीं circulation में, so it will ultimately not lead to the alkalosis. But at the same time, the HCO3 can be absorbed producing a metabolic alkalosis. These systemic antacids. The non-absorbable antacid examples are the non-absorbable antacids, though less prone to cause rebound effect. Rebound क्या होता है? जैसे अभी आपको मैंने बताया कि H2CO3 कंटिन्यूसली वो एक तो न्यूट्रल सॉल्ट बन गया, फिर H2CO3 to give H plus HCO3 minus, and this is the reversible. This is known as acid rebound. तो नॉन absorbable के केसेस में क्या होगा? No rebound effect, but in case of absorbable antacid examples, the absorbable antacids, chemical antacids, show the most rapid onset of action and provide faster relief of symptoms, but they can cause acid rebound. Examples non-absorbable के aluminum phosphate, aluminum hydroxide, magnesium silicate, magnesium hydroxide, aluminum magnesium combination. Absorbable सोडियम बाइकार्बोनेट, बेकिंग सोडा, कई बार कहते हैं ना मीठा सोडा फटाफट पानी में डाल के पी लिया. Magnesium oxide, magnesia, magnesium carbonates, and aluminum magnesium combination. See, this slide is showing how these systemic and non-systemic, they are working or they are neutralizing the acid. The first is the absorbable or systemic. NaHCO3 that you have taken, sodium bicarbonate that you have taken in the stomach, it will be broken down to Na plus HCO3 minus. This this H plus, this is generated by, this is more in concentration in case of parietal cells, it is released. So this HCO3 plus, HCO3 minus and these H plus ions, they will combine with each other. If they combine with each other, it will lead to formation of H2CO3. H2CO3, again it will be in the form of H2O and carbon dioxide. And this Na plus, this will be released as it is from the body. So HCO3, Na plus and HCO3 minus. But in case of non-absorbable or non-systemic, like calcium carbonate, magnesium hydroxide, aluminum hydroxide, see what is happening over here. Calcium carbonate, hydrogen ions will react with this. It will lead to formation of H2O, CO3, H2CO3. H2CO3 will get H2O converted into H2O plus carbon dioxide. This calcium, it will be released from the body and HCO3 minus. This is non-systemic. Requirements of the ideal antacid क्या-क्या होनी चाहिए? Number 1, should neutralize excessive acidity. Excess of acidity should be neutralized on the spot. Should not interfere with the digestion. Like if you are taking the antacid, it should not affect your digestion at any cost. It should be stable. Number 4, it should be non-toxic and non-irritant. अगर toxicity cause कर देगी या और अगर irritation cause करेगी, then what is the fun of taking such type of medication? Then it should not cause constipation also. It should not cause constipation. Then the next point is, it should be cheap and easily available. Price is also an important factor that you have to take it, and it should be easily available. It should be insoluble in water. It should be insoluble in water. It should not be absorbed through GIT. Absorption नहीं होना चाहिए GIT के through, otherwise systemic में चला जाएगा. It should not evolve gas. Normally, you can see from the reaction, this carbon dioxide is evolved, and the moment you take the antacid preparation, with the help of burping you can see अच्छा हाँ अब दवाई का असर होना शुरू हो गया. So it should, but more and more of the gas should not be evolved. ज्यादा गैस बनेगी अगर तो फिर वो H2CO3 वाला साइकिल शुरू हो जाएगा. And it should not cause alkyl losses. बॉडी में सिस्टेमिक alkyl losses नहीं होना चाहिए. These are the requirements for an ideal antacid. Non-absorbable antacids have many other favorable properties also. The non-absorbable, non-systemic. They absorb pepsin, resulting in the reduced proteolytic activity of gastric acid. तो अगर वो एसिड अगर वो वाला इफेक्ट कम होगा तो ऑब्वियसली जो पीएच है वो उतना कम नहीं होगा जितना कि हो रहा है नॉर्मली गैस्ट्रिन के फंक्शन से. देन कनेक्ट lysolecithin and bile acid which have damaging effect on the gastric mucosa. So they should not be able to cause damage to the gastric mucosa. Possess cytoprotective function through activation of prostaglandin. They should possess cytoprotective action through activation of prostaglandin synthesis, which stimulate the secretion of mucin and bicarbonates, improve microcirculation. Next, possess ambient function, that is forming a protective film on the gastric mucosal surface, otherwise mucosa will be damaged and that can lead to further so many effects. So they should have this property of protection of the gastric mucosa. They should be able to bind epithelial growth factor and fix it in the ulcerous defect region, effectively stimulating cell proliferation and angiogenesis. These are the favorable properties that should be present. Now, see, every therapy, it should be a short term, any sort of ailment which is present in the body, any type of problem, it should be not a long term treatment. शॉर्ट टर्म प्रॉब्लम हुई दवाई ली खत्म हो गया. अगर लॉन्ग टर्म ट्रीटमेंट लोगे तो उसके कुछ एक पर्टिकुलर साइड इफेक्ट्स है विच कैन बी प्रेजेंट इफ पीएच रेजेस टू हाई. Rebound acidity to neutralize the alkali occurs. अगर pH ज्यादा पहले तो न्यूट्रल हुआ फिर ज्यादा बढ़ गया तो क्या होगा एसिडिटी वापस होएगी. क्यों होएगी? क्योंकि जो अल्कली एक्स्ट्रा बनी है उसको भी तो न्यूट्रलाइज करना है. सो रीबाउंड विल बी देयर. All these are the side effects of the long-term antacid therapy. Number 2, antacids which absorb systemically exert alkaline effect on the body's buffer system. बहुत ज्यादा देर तक अगर लेते रहेंगे और अगर सिस्टेमिक सर्कुलेशन सिस्टेमिकली इफेक्ट कर रहा है तो अल्टीमेटली जो बॉडी का नॉर्मल बफर सिस्टम है उस पर इफेक्ट आएगा ही आएगा कि मोर एंड मोर ऑफ द अल्कली विल बी रिलीज्ड एंड द बफर सिस्टम विल बी बॉडीज बफर सिस्टम विल बी इफेक्टेड. Some antacids cause constipation, like I told you, aluminum containing antacid, while others have laxative effect. So long term में तो फिर प्रॉब्लम होगी ही होगी इसकी. या तो कॉम्बिनेशन थेरेपी, बट वी कैन नॉट से दैट कॉम्बिनेशन थेरेपी भी तो चलते ही रहना तो कोई बात नहीं. There are so many other side effects that are associated with the prolonged use of these antacids. Then sodium containing antacids are problem for patients on sodium restricted diet. For example, hypertensive patient. तो अगर हाइपरटेंसिव पेशेंट में हम उनको कह रहे हैं सोडियम रिस्ट्रिक्टेड डाइट लेनी है और इधर से इफ यू आर गिविंग देम सोडियम कंटेनिंग एंटासिड्स देन डेफिनेटली इट विल लीड टू प्रॉब्लम फॉर दोस पेशेंट्स. सो लॉन्ग टर्म ट्रीटमेंट इज नॉट recommended at all. And next, antacids containing calcium, they may cause hypercalcemia. See, emia means in the blood. So अगर ज्यादा देर तक कैल्शियम कंटेनिंग एंटासिड्स आप ले रहे हो तो it will lead to increase in the calcium level in the blood. That will lead to hypercalcemia, which promote ultimately क्या side effect होगा, which promote kidney stones formation and reduce पैराथॉर्मोन प्रोडक्शन. सारा जो फीडबैक मैकेनिज्म से चल रहा है तो बॉडी के सिस्टम में ये प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करेगा ही करेगा. नाउ रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ द कॉम्बिनेशंस ऑफ एंटासिड थेरेपी. सिस्टेमिक एंटासिड लीड्स टू alkalosis if antacid is water soluble or composed of readily absorbable ions. See, if the antacid is water soluble or composed of readily absorbable ions, it gets readily absorbed and may show its alkaline nature. It may show its alkaline nature. ठीक है? Then, whereas non-systemic antacids are more potent. Non-systemic antacids are more potent and effective as compared to systemic antacids, but they are insoluble and poorly absorbed systemically. I repeat, non-systemic antacids are more potent and effective as compared to systemic antacid, but they are insoluble and poorly absorbed systemically. And next, in magnesium salt, magnesium carbonate is most water soluble and react with HCl2 at a slow rate, while magnesium hydroxide has low solubility and has the power to absorb and inactivate pepsin and to protect the ulcer base. Aluminum hydroxide is a weak and slow reacting antacid. The aluminum ion relax smooth muscles and cause constipation. The aluminum ion relax smooth muscles की relaxation करता है and cause constipation, because if the peristalsis is not proper, it will lead to constipation. Patients who are on sodium restricted diet should be cautioned for excess of sodium when an antacid is recommended. तो ये है कि जब चारा ही नहीं है हमारे पास, एंटासिड लेना ही लेना है, तो सोडियम डाइट को और ज्यादा उसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर दिया जा सकता है. Every single compound among antacid have some side effect, especially when used for longer period or used in elderly patient. Every single compound among antacid have some side effects, especially when used for longer period or used in elderly patients. So, to avoid certain side effects associated with antacids, combination of antacids are used like magnesium and aluminum containing preparations. Magnesium and aluminum containing preparations, for example, magnesium hydroxide is fast acting antacid with aluminum hydroxide, which is a slow acting antacid. Magnesium and calcium containing preparation, where one is laxative and the later one is, that is calcium, is the constipative in nature. Third one is the compound magnesium trisilicate oral powder. It is having magnesium trisilicate, chalk powder, and sodium bicarbonate and magnesium carbonate and megaltrate. It is a chemical combination of aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide. It contains the equivalent of 28 to 39% of magnesium oxide and 17 to 25% of aluminum oxide. It occurs as a white crystalline powder. There is one more thing that is used, that is simethicone. See, there is sometimes there is a problem of and that is used as an anti-flatulent. क्या होता है कि जैसे ही कई बार बहुत बहुत ज्यादा गैस सिक्रेट होनी शुरू हो जाती है, और इसको अगर कैटेगरी वाइज अगर आप देखा जाए तो इट इज अ defoaming agent. So this simethicone, all these preparations which are you can see from the market like Gelusil, Digene, जो syrups हैं इनमें ये simethicone डाला जाता है. So as to it is the defoaming agent and more of the gas is not you can call it as a anti-flatulent. Algicon tablets. It is a chewable tablet which is prepared by aluminum hydroxide, magnesium carbonate co-dried gel, magnesium alginate, magnesium carbonate, and potassium bicarbonate. These are, I have indicated the strengths also. Then Simico tablets. It contains aluminum hydroxide, magnesium carbonate, co-dried gel, that is 282 milligram, magnesium hydroxide, and activated dimethicone or simethicone that I have already just discussed now. Then aluminum hydroxide gel, magnesium trisilicate combination. It is one of the most common combinations. It has laxative, constipative, and protective effect. Indications and clinical uses. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. भाई ये जो हमने इतने सारे एंटासिड डिस्कस किए हैं, इनके यूज क्या है? Antacids neutralize hydrochloric acid, inactivate pepsin, absorb bile acids, stimulate the synthesis of bicarbonates, and raise the tone of the lower esophageal sphincter. तो ये सारे इफेक्ट जो है वो एंटासिड्स कॉज करते हैं. न्यूट्रलाइज तो करता ही करता है हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड को, इनएक्टिवेट पेप्सिन, absorb bile acids, stimulate the synthesis of bicarbonates, and raise the tone of the लोअर इसोफेजियल स्फिंक्टर। सेकंड इज द गैस्ट्रिक एंड ड्यूडेनल अल्सर्स, इस पे यूज किए जाते हैं these antacids. Acute and chronic gastritis, that is gastroduodenitis. एक्यूट एंड क्रॉनिक, बहुत देर तक जिनको गैस्ट्राइटिस, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया ही है कि इन्फ्लामेशन, गैस्ट्रिक इन्फ्लामेशन, ड्यूडेनम इन्फ्लामेशन, उसको यूज सॉर्ट आउट करने में काम आते हैं. देन गैस्ट्रोपैथी caused by NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. आपने देखा होगा कुछ एक नॉन सिलेक्टिव एंटी इंफ्लेमेटरी ड्रग्स होती है जिनको हम जो एनसेड्स के नाम से या नसेड्स के नाम से मशहूर है, वो क्या करते हैं, कॉक्स 1 एंजाइम को इनहिबिट कर देते हैं. और कॉक्स 1 दैट इज साइक्लोऑक्सीजनेज 1, दिस एंजाइम इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द गैस्ट्रिक प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द, जैसे ये म्यूकोजा है तो प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द गैस्ट्रिक म्यूकोजा करता है ये कॉक्स 1 एंजाइम. अगर आपने कॉक्स 1 एंजाइम को इनहिबिट कर दिया तो क्या करता है, गैस्ट्रिक म्यूकोजा जो है वो डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगा. अब वो डिस्टर्ब होगा तो इट कैन लीड टू एसिडिटी आल्सो. तो एंटासिड्स क्या करते हैं, दे कैन बी टेकन अलोन और इन एडिशन टू द एंटी सिक्रेटरी ड्रग्स in order to prevent gastro and duodenopathies affected by the administration of NSAIDs. तो ये उस इफेक्ट को भी हेल्प करता है. कई बार चॉइस नहीं होती तो हमें नॉन सिलेक्टिव NSAIDs लेने पड़ते हैं, बट व्हाट शुड बी प्रेफर, अगर इन्फ्लामेशन है, अगर कहीं पेन है, तो वी शुड गो फॉर COX-2 inhibitors selectively. COX-2 is the enzyme that is responsible for inflammation, but COX-1 is the enzyme जिसका काम होता है हाउसकीपिंग, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द गैस्ट्रिक म्यूकोजा. तो अगर आपने नॉन सिलेक्टिव लिया, COX-1 को इनहिबिट करेगा, COX-1 को इनहिबिट करने से गैस्ट्रिक म्यूकोजा डिस्टर्ब होगा, गैस्ट्रिक म्यूकोजा डिस्टर्ब होने की वजह से बहुत सारी गैस्ट्रिक, इसको हम गैस्ट्रोपैथी बोलते हैं, तो गैस्ट्रोपैथी या ड्यूडेनोपैथीज कॉज होंगी. उसके लिए यू हैव टू टेक दीज एंटासिड्स. एंटासिड्स आर रेकमेंडेड फॉर हेल्दी पीपल विद डिस्कम्फर्ट और एपिगैस्ट्रिक पेन. कई बार कहते हैं कि कुछ भी नहीं है, एक अनइजीनेस फील हो रही है, मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरे हार्ट बर्न हो रहा है, एपिगैस्ट्रिक पेन हो रही है, वहां पर फिर हेल्दी पीपल को लेने में कोई डर नहीं, नॉर्मल पेशेंट को लेने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. बट ऑफकोर्स आई विल से लॉन्ग टर्म इफेक्ट नहीं होना चाहिए. जब दिल के कुछ भी डिस्कम्फर्ट हुआ चलो ये ले, नहीं, हमारी बॉडी ही बता देती है हमें कहाँ पर क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रही है. ओनली इन वो सर्कमस्टांसेस वी कैन यूज. And next is the antacids are used in the intensive care units to prevent so-called stress ulcers. कई बार स्ट्रेस की वजह से, स्ट्रेस भी एक फैक्टर है अल्सर्स बनने में, तो वहां पर एक इंटेंसिव केयर यूनिट में these antacids can be used. एंटासिड इंटरेक्शन विद अदर ड्रग्स. अब एंटासिड्स ले तो रहे हो, कई सारी इसके अंदर मेटल्स हैं, अब कई और ड्रग्स के साथ इनके इंटरेक्शंस भी हो सकती हैं. व्हाट आर दोस टाइप ऑफ इंटरेक्शंस? एंटासिड्स दैट कंटेन कैल्शियम, magnesium, aluminum ions are chelators. So they are chelators. They act as chelating agents. So they bind a great number of drugs like digitoxin, tetracycline, indomethacin, aspirin, cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, theophylline. So ये contradictory है तो इनको अवॉइड करना चाहिए, इकट्ठा नहीं ले सकते आप. Antacids also reduce the bioavailability of few drugs like barbiturates, सल्फोनामाइड्स एंड पेनिसिलिन. तो कुछ ड्रग्स के साथ भी ये इनकी बायोअवेलेबिलिटी को घटा देता है. टू अवॉइड अनडिजायरेबल इंटरेक्शंस, एंटासिड्स आर यूजुअली यूज्ड 2 hours बिफोर और आफ्टर टेकिंग एनी मेडिकेशन. सी दीज आर द इंडिकेशंस. कोई भी मेडिकेशन अगर आप ले रहे हो तब तो उसका इफेक्ट हो जाता है, तो दे हैव टू बी टेकन 2 hours आइदर बिफोर और आफ्टर टेकिंग द medications. Then comes the these are some of the type of questions that can be asked. What are antacids? Give the ideal properties of antacids. Then you have to discuss it. बड़े नंबर पे भी आ सकता है, छोटे नंबर पे भी क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. Mention any 2 types of antacids. Then name any 2 examples of combination of antacids or why combination therapy is required. This is also one of the important questions. Discuss briefly the mode of action of antacids. Differentiate between absorbable and non-absorbable antacids and differentiate between the systemic and non-systemic. अलग-अलग forms of questions हो सकते हैं. Now कुछ एक और कुछ एंटासिड्स के बारे में अब हम लोग डिस्कस करेंगे. सोडियम बाइकार्बोनेट, एल्यूमिनियम हाइड्रोक्साइड जेल, मैग्नीशियम हाइड्रोक्साइड मिक्सचर. What is sodium bicarbonate? Sodium bicarbonate is the NaHCO3. It is the formula. Its molar mass is 84.01 gram per mole. Synonym is baking soda, bread soda, cooking soda or bicarbonate of soda. Standards are it contains not less than 99 and not more than 101% of sodium bicarbonate. Properties appearance it is a white crystalline powder और granular form में ये available होगा. Odorless कोई smell नहीं होती इसकी और इसका हल्का सा saline taste रहता है. Its density is more than water. It is 1.1 to 1.3. Melting point इसका ऐसा है कि it decomposes to sodium carbonate starting at 50 degree centigrade. Solubility in water, it is freely soluble in water. 69 gram per liter, 96 at 0 degree centigrade, 96 gram per liter at 20 degree centigrade, 165 at 60 and 236 gram at 100 degree centigrade. And its refractive index is 1.583. Preparation. Sodium bicarbonate may be obtained by the reaction of carbon dioxide with an aqueous solution of sodium hydroxide. The initial reaction produces sodium carbonate. Further addition of carbon dioxide produces sodium bicarbonate. Here you can see carbon dioxide plus NaOH to give Na2CO3. This is sodium carbonate. This sodium carbonate will further react with carbon dioxide and water to give sodium bicarbonate. Then another method for synthesis is the Solvay process. In this process, carbon dioxide is first formed carbonic acid, followed by treatment with ammonia, formed ammonium bicarbonate, which further on treatment with sodium chloride form sodium bicarbonate. Here you can see carbon dioxide plus water to give H2CO3, that is carbonic acid. Then this carbonic acid will react with made to react with ammonia to form ammonium bicarbonate. This ammonium bicarbonate will react with sodium chloride to form sodium bicarbonate and ammonium chloride. The chemical reaction क्या क्या इसके हो सकते हैं सोडियम बाइकार्बोनेट के और थर्मल डिकम्पोजिशन above 50 degree centigrade. Sodium bicarbonate gradually decomposes into sodium carbonate, water and carbon dioxide. The conversion is fast at 200 degree centigrade. See, sodium bicarbonate to sodium carbonate, water and carbon dioxide. Sodium bicarbonate reacts with acetic acid, producing sodium acetate, water and carbon dioxide. See, NaHCO3 plus acetic acid to give sodium acetate, water and carbon dioxide. Then sodium bicarbonate, again it can react with bases like sodium hydroxide, sodium bicarbonate, sodium hydroxide to give NO2CO3, that is sodium carbonate and water. When mercury chloride, HgCl2, solution is added to the solution of sodium bicarbonate, a reddish precipitate of mercuric oxide is formed. Mercuric oxide HgO, it is formed and along with H2O and carbon dioxide. Now coming to the identification test, how sodium bicarbonate can be identified. An aqueous solution of sodium bicarbonate when boiled, it liberates carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide, it is liberated as a gas. A solution of sodium bicarbonate is treated with solution of magnesium sulfate, no precipitates are formed. On heating, sodium bicarbonate produces hydroxide ions OH- and carbon dioxide in solution. This magnesium sulfate reacts with hydroxide ion to produce magnesium hydroxide, which in situ reacts with carbon dioxide to form white precipitates of this magnesium carbonate. This is the reaction. Sodium bicarbonate will react to give Na2CO3 plus water plus carbon dioxide. This upward arrow, it indicates the formation of gas. और अगर डाउनवर्ड एरो लगा हो तो that is formation of precipitates. So this Na2CO3 with water, it will lead to the formation of sodium ions, hydroxide ions. These hydroxide ions will react with magnesium sulfate to form magnesium hydroxide and sulfate ions, and this magnesium hydroxide will react with carbon dioxide to give white precipitates of MgCO3 and water. Now coming to the assay, weigh accurately 1 gram of sodium bicarbonate and dissolve in 20 ml of water. Titrate with, it is a titration reaction with solution of 0.5 normal sulfuric acid using methyl orange as indicator. So each ml of 0.5 normal sulfuric acid is equivalent to 0.0425 gram of sodium bicarbonate. Another method for assay is its assay is based on acid based titration. Weigh 1.5 gram of the substance in 50 ml of water. Titrate with 1 normal hydrochloric acid using methyl orange as the indicator. See here, this is the reaction sodium bicarbonate with HCl to give NaCl, that is salt, water and carbon dioxide as a gas. Each 1 ml of 1N HCl is equivalent to 0.08401 gram of sodium bicarbonate. Now coming to the test for purity, the sample is tested for the presence of following impurities like arsenic should not be more than 2 ppm, sulfate should not be more than 150 ppm, chloride should not be more than 200 ppm, iron not more than 20, heavy metals should not exceed 5 ppm, and other impurities to be tested include carbonates and calcium. Loss on rank should not be more than 1%. And coming to incompatibility, it inhibits the absorption of tetracycline from the GIT. What are the cautions? The CVS, that is cardiovascular patients or those on the sodium restricted diet, they should not be advised to avoid. They should be advised to avoid this antacid because sodium ion will be increased then. Then storage conditions. It should be stored in a highly airtight container because of its hygroscopic property in the moist atmosphere, and it releases carbon dioxide at 50 degrees centigrade and gets converted to sodium carbonate at 100 degrees centigrade. So coming to its uses, as it is used as systemic antacid and electrolyte, it is used in the electrolyte replacement therapy also. It is used as systemic alkalizing agent used in the treatment of metabolic acidosis, that is it increase in acidity. Bicarbonate of soda can also be used in removing splinter off for the skin. Sodium bicarbonate can be added to local anesthetics to speed up the onset of their actions or effects and make their injection less painful. So, local anesthetic के तौर पे it can be used. Sodium bicarbonate may be used as a buffering agent combined with the table salt when creating a solution of nasal irrigation. 0.1 to 1% of sodium bicarbonate solution used as a eye lotion. It is used to use removed earwax and lubricating fluid for contact lenses. 5 to 10% of sodium bicarbonate solution is used for local application for burn, insect bites, etc. and used in the preparation of effervescent formulations. Effervescent जहाँ पर gas is released. Then coming to aluminum hydroxide gel, available as AlOH3, molar mass 78. Synonym is hydrated alumina, orthoaluminic acid or aluminic acid. Aluminum hydroxide is found in nature as the mineral gibbsite, also known as hydrogellite, and its three much rarer polymorphs like barite, doyleite, and nordestratite. Its appearance is white amorphous powder, odorless and tasteless, and its density is 2.42 gram per cc. Melting point is 300 degrees centigrade, and it's practically insoluble in water and alcohol, soluble in dilute mineral acid, and in solution of alkali hydroxide. Aluminum hydroxide is amphoteric in nature, that is, it is both basic as well as acidic properties. Aluminum hydroxide gel, it is an aqueous white viscous suspension. It is very thick suspension of hydrated aluminum oxide. It also contains sodium benzoate as a preservative, and it contains oil of mentha, peppermint oil as a flavoring agent, and sucrose, saccharin, etc. as a sweetening agent. It has pH range between 5.5 to 8. It is prepared by adding hot solution of potash alum slowly with constant stirring to a hot solution of sodium carbonate. After complete removal of carbon dioxide, precipitated aluminum hydroxide is filtered. It is washed thoroughly with hot water until it becomes free from sulfate ions. Coming to its physical properties, it is slightly affects over both red and blue litmus paper. Aluminum hydroxide gel gives astringent aluminum chloride when it reacts with gastric hydrochloric acid, and sometimes it results to nausea, vomiting, and constipation that I have already mentioned that they lead to constipation. When heated to red hot, it decomposes into water and aluminum oxide. It should be it is a thumb rule that they have to be stored at a temperature around 25 degree, and it should be closely a well closed container. Identification test, solution of it in dilute HCl gives entire test for aluminum, that is Al3 plus. Test for purity, The sample is tested for the presence of following impurities like arsenic, sulfate, and iron, and the heavy metals should not be more than 10 ppm, and it is used externally as mild astringent and desiccant, treatment of diarrhea, cholera, and it acts as protective too. It is constituent in some food powder and, of course, in the gastric as gastric antacid. It is used in the treatment of GERD, that is gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it may inhibit action of pepsin and stimulate the stomach mucus secretion. Like this magnesium hydroxide mixture, it is also known as milk of magnesia, and it is a mixture of magnesium sulfate, sodium hydroxide, light magnesium oxide, chloroform, purified water, up to the quality sufficient. Then coming to its assay, it is assayed by simple acid base titrations and titration with the water, sulfuric acid, and titrate with excess of acid with 1 molar sodium hydroxide by using methyl orange solution indicator. Each ml of 0.5 molar sulfuric acid is equivalent to 29.16 milligram of hydrated magnesium oxide solution. These are some of the references that I have taken, and in this lecture, I have covered about various GIT agents that are used to treat various ailments for the GIT. Now, I would like to inform you that the next lecture will be taken up by Dr. Bhupinder Kumar, and Dr. Bhupinder Kumar is going to deliver lecture on pharmaceutical analysis of B.Pharm first semester. He is working as a associate professor at Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry at ISF College of Pharmacy, Moga, and he is PhD in pharmaceutical chemistry with specialization in medicinal chemistry from Central University of Punjab, Batinda. And without taking much time, I invite Dr. Bhupinder Kumar to deliver